Just a recap of the last video where we were cutting the black and the charcoal apart and gluing back the green EVA back into it. I finished gluing it up, and as you can see, this is what we're working with. I got some extra, obviously. We could either leave it as is, which I'm not going to, because I want to show you how to do the second cut and adding in more material. But what we have to do first is we got to trim these things up. This big one, and literally just cut it off with a pair of scissors. But we've got to get them back to being equal, so that when we go to do our cuts again, we can stack them on top of each other and cut it apart once more. First, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim off all of the little edges of the trims that have been put in here. There's only a few little kickouts here and there, so we're not going to have to trim off too much. This is one of the reasons why I started with a bigger block, so that if I did have to take it down, I wouldn't be running out of space to turn it. So it's about to get loud because we're going to turn on the bandsaw. So all I do is literally like eyeball it, get them as close to it as possible, and then we'll take out with the fence an actual preset amount. Here we go. Loud noises. That side's a little taller. Take it off enough to be able to put a flat surface on it. Alright, so now that we've got all that extra off, now we need to straighten the block back out, because we have to get them to where they're going to cut the exact same way. And if I stack them on top of each other on their original cuts, we have just a little bit of offness. That's in the height, but if the width didn't get off a little bit here. This is where you got to use your judgment. In theory, you should be able to take it down and it'd be fine. But if that block is pretty close to being good, I think I'm going to actually run with that and not even it up. So let's say that you had one where the side was kicked out a lot. Like you had one where it's like when you stacked it on top of each other, you had a big gap. You would need to go through here and do exactly what we did earlier and straighten up that side. Mine are still 2x2s, or a little less than 2x2s. The only reason why I'm saying I'm going to leave it is because of that. See how they actually go exactly together how they're supposed to. There's a slight little difference here, but I'm using a judgment call that when I tape them together, we're still going to be fine. See, I want to take that little hump off right there. Where's our hump on this one? It's not that side, so it's you that's causing it. Yeah. So same thing, just pushing through there just to get rid of the hump. Looking at that block, you can tell where it's off. And there. See? Now it's all better. We got an itty bitty little gap right there, but that's going to be just fine. Who's bad over here? That guy. You guys, you see what I'm shaving off. I'm shaving off tiny, tiny little pieces. Really thin little sections. It's not going to change how that block gets stacked back together. Get you back to where you're supposed to be. We're a little short on that side. That's alright. We're going to run with that. I'm going to go back over there and tape it together. The only reason why I did not cut them, like, and actually completely straighten them up, is because they're pretty straight as it is. If you had one that was off and was kiltered a lot, you would need to take that down. One thing I did want to try tonight, instead of using the painter's tape, instead of using this tonight, I wanted to try the double-sided duct tape. I want to see how well it does. The biggest thing is, for both of these blocks, we cut the side that's numbered, right? You see how it's identical? They were stacked just like this. That side was cut. To do another cut, we have to take this axis, and it doesn't matter if you rotate it this way or you rotate it this way. You just have to change off of that axis. So I'm going to rotate it this way, and we'll stack them on top like so that when we look at it from the side, we see all of our cuts, but top and bottom are the straights. And we're going to tape that back together. But I'm going to see if the duct tape works. If it jumps, I'm going to stop immediately, because this would make it a lot easier if it will work. But we'll see. Always up for trying new stuff, right? Well, I mean, it's stuck. Because this is the second cut, I don't want to do a whole bunch of curves and semicircles and stuff, because this is the cut that if we have to take material out, it's going to be on this cut in order to make it match up. Because as we cut it apart and put it back together, there's potential that these trims won't line up when the new trim goes in. So I am not going to do swirly drills and swirls and all this other stuff. We're just going to do straight lines, and they can be straight across, they can be angles, they can do any of that stuff, because we want to make it easy for us to take out material when we put the new trim in. So everything on that side was marked 1 through 6. We're going to do the ABCs on this side, and I always try to take up dead space too as much as possible. B, we're going to do a straight through there. C, an angle. D, and we'll do that. So E and F. So okay, so all of them are straight cuts. Angles, angles, one little straight to cut up this chunk in the middle. Now it's back to the bandsaw. Same thing as before. Watch your fingers. Keep the pieces together as best as possible when they come off. That way you don't get confused. Not bad. Alright, I might like the tape now. When you start cutting them apart, you start seeing how the insides look. I will say one little note with the tape, make sure you're pushing down on both. As I push through, that one tried to skip and jump on me. So try to make sure you're pushing down as it goes through to keep the tape adhered. So that's doing good. I like the tape. Tape will be the only way from now on. Thanks, Michael Martin. Straight cuts are easy. Alright, and I did me a dumb one. I call it dumb because that's pretty damn close to my fingers. Don't recommend that cut, but we're going to do it. Let me talk about it. The reason, one, I want to cut up that space, I want to have enough to glue on from that one to that one, from that point to that point. And if I go close to here, I start to lose this angle that I need to re-glue back to. If I have to take out material, I'll also lose more for that angle, and that block can get cut short. So I do want to try to get this done. Just, if you do one that skinny, be careful. Let's put it up against the fence and not chance taking off fingers tonight. That'd be great, Mary. I need your fingers. And I have a push stick. Y'all like my push stick? Painter stick. That's the smarter way to do that, because now we've got that little skinny piece that came right off of there very, very nicely. And Mary didn't have to chop her finger in half and be mad because she doesn't get to do wraps anymore. In a perfect world, we would have cut this pink the same time that we cut the green. The reason being, we're never going to get the same width again, no matter how good you get it set up. So we'll see how I do. And what I'll do is, instead of cutting the, instead of cutting that big long section, I've got all this scrap stuff over here. I can just slice through there real quick and check the diameter or the width. This is when the magnetic ones are when, as I said, get a zero clearance so you're not dealing with this kind of crap, because this is tiny. And that's where you see that my fence is not the best, because it likes to swing on me. So what do I got over here I don't mind wasting? This is part of me cutting down a block I had earlier, actually, for the grips I posted today. That's teeny tiny. Hold on. That's less than a millimeter, yeah. We gotta try to get it to 1.5, roughly. Well, I mean, it technically could be smaller. Let's see. That one's 2. Really doesn't matter if it's the exact same size, I guess. It could be a little bit skinnier. One more time, let's see what she's cutting at. 1.3, that's about as close as we're gonna get. Solid. Alright, 2 blocks, 2 strips again. Looks like I was taking it off at either side. That one. I did a dummy. Did y'all see what I did? I didn't lower this thing to keep the blade from wobbling. But it appeared to cut straight, so I guess we'll let the calipers tell us whether it did or not. I'm sitting here doing checking the measurements. This one's good. This is the one that had the bar up too, or the support up too high. So I've got a variant of like 1.4 to 1.5 to 1.6. Down there it got to be 1.2. So I think that's livable. So we're going to run with it. I want to check that again. That spot's 1.4. That one's 1.6. 1.6. 1.5. 1.3. 1.5. 1.4. 1.2. No, 1.3. Not great. 4. 1.5. Yeah, this one's ranging from like 1.5 to 1.7, and I can feel that's the skinny side. Yeah, it's 1.2 down there. I don't want to go that small. I'm going to cut that off. That's about what we ended up having to cut off the green one last time. That was too skinny. So hopefully it works. D, C, B, it's got to be A, E, and F. Whoop, F is so skinny, it doesn't want to stand up. Alright, so how hard are they to get apart? Oh, easy breezy. I was worried it was going to leave like a nasty residue, but for the most part, it's actually pretty good. Label them so that you can keep track of them. That's the A's. We're going to put the blocks back together just like we did before. 10 out of 10 for this tape. So, the double-sided duct tape that I use for my wraps and I sell, guess what? Works great for this too. I love it when a product can be multi-purposeful. C, D, E, and itty-bitty skinny F. Alright, so once again, same as before, switch them around. So just remember, this is what our block looks like currently. Stand up, F. And then, this is what the block looks like now. See how we got some fun little swirls in there? So, the trick is, are my joints going to change when we go to inlay the new colors in? And if so, we'll have to go back to the bandsaw and take out just as much as we're putting in, which means that we'll have to take out 1.5, a little less, to get it to match up. But before we decide that, we have to cut our inlay pieces, colored pieces to fit, and then we can see how it looks. Remember, cut them just a little bit longer. You're already cut. You're good. And last piece. Alright, moment of truth. So we can tell just off the first piece if we're going to have to take it off. When we go to put these back in, this is where we have two options. We can take out the material, or, because we left our block so big, we can shift it. Because here's the deal. This is what I was talking about with the joints. See how if I square up from at the top and make sure it's square, the joints don't match up. And you'll see it. You won't see it on that one. You have the option. We can take it back over to the bandsaw, and I've done this multiple times because I hate having to take out the same material I've put in because I never can get the cut right. Hence why I leave my blocks a little bit bigger. You can take your block and shift it down just a little bit and leave that gap and glue this up to where it matches the way it's supposed to. Or you can take the material out. And you'd have to do that for your entire block. And you also have to go through here and go, okay, if I do this shifting like that, and how much of that block am I going to lose? Is it doable to do it that way? Because the fence is still set up to where it's going to take out the same amount. See how much is going to get distorted? That's just not okay. So let's not do that. So we're just going to take these pieces and we're going to cut them. We don't want to take it off of this piece because that's not going to work very well. We don't want to have to do fingers up against that. So we'll take it out of this piece. So this side needs to get cut to make that match up. This side will get cut to make that match up. I'll take it out of this side to make that match up. This side to make that match up. And I'll take it out of this one to make it match up. Same thing here. We'll do the exact same cuts on the same pieces, on the same sides, so that hopefully everything goes back together the way it's supposed to. So everything but F gets a piece cut out of it. Back to the bandsaw! And it's actually pretty good that we cut the trims just now because the bandsaw is set to the exact width that we just took out, instead of us having to go back and figure out what we just took out and try to take it out and mimic it. And it's literally just pushing it and taking out exactly what we put in, okay? grab the other block, take this one back so I don't get them mixed up. Last one. I would like to throw out a little disclaimer. This is all stuff that I have just kind of figured out. And here's the real test. I'm going to go to put these pieces back together. Will it line up? No, that one's not going to line up. To get that joint to match up, see, in theory, you're supposed to, if you put something in, you're supposed to be able to take it out. Taking it out still shifts that block. I should have just left it in there and dealt with the shift. Let's see if it gets better as it goes through it. Let's see. C might not matter because C doesn't have any. C only has that one cross joint. That does not matter, so that one's fine. D going into E. We have a combination that hit each other right there. So you're fine. So A is the cheeky bastard tonight. I got you, A. That's another one that did a little tiny shift. The other one's matched up pretty well. This one should sit like this. Because the whole point is to get these joints to match up. So we're matching that side, but we also have that one we have to pay attention to too as well. And I'm okay with a tiny shift like that. Like, another reason why I won't take the blocks down to size immediately. So that one will just be a little bit of a booger to glue up. We'll have to just make sure we shift those two pieces particularly down or up to make sure the joints match up. And we'll still be able to get a block out of that. Alright, so that's one side. That's one side. So that's going to have a lot of fun movement on it. And we can keep cutting these blocks as many times as we want to, because we have 4 axes that we can cut, right? So we could flip them again and do another cut if we wanted to. I'm only going to do 2 with you guys. See if this one worked out any better than that one did. That one did. So there you go. That's how it should be. That first block was the, and then this one is the one that should be how it lines up. There's going to be a tiny shift on that one, but nothing drastic. So right off the bat, that one's already the better one that's going to glue up. So you can see that there's very little shifting happening. There's a little bit of growth on that one side. That's how it should have come out. And you guys saw, I didn't change the setting, but something happened on that very first one that caused that first one to really rise up. We'll glue it back together, square them up. Same thing as before, get your pieces, find whatever rhythm works for you. For me, it's doing the flip up, so I know that left and right go sandwiched together. I won't get confused. 2 light coats again. So you'll spend the majority of your time with any of these kind of like custom grips is literally glue up time. And the actual gluing process itself isn't complicated. You're just waiting on it to dry. So as I said before, if you're working on multiple versions of this, it goes pretty quick. So that's basically it. The biggest part of this video is when you do your second cut, you start to add, it doesn't matter if we change colors or if we stayed with green. When we start to add that second color, that second inlay in, the joints is what we're focusing on. And sometimes you can get away with not having to take out material. You might have to shift your block, but if you cut your block down, like let's say that you're doing a freshwater block, right? And like the ending outer diameter is somewhere between 1.1 and 1.2, depending on who you're making it for. You know, you could cut off 1/2 inch of the block and then start working with it and save that other 1/2 inch before you go to, you know, turn it down. But if you've cut it to 1.5 inches and then you've got something like this and you go to distort it and then you go to try to cut that block straight from the distortions, you're going to end up not having enough material there to turn it and make it round before it gets to be too small. So it's one of those, you got to make a decision, either go for the side of precision and still know that it's going to possibly screw up, or try it leaving it larger, wasting a little bit until you get a little bit better at it and can fine-tune the process along the way. I'm not an expert at this stuff, you know, at any means. I'm just, this is one in particular that I figured out how to do. I enjoy this particular look, and I'm happy to teach it. I don't have all the answers. I don't pretend to have all the answers, and I'll flat out tell you when I don't know something. So first round is on. I want to make sure I get all my pink pieces picked up. We don't want them to stick. Now you can go ahead and like figure out, okay, well I need to add like 1/2 inch to make this 6 inches, and go ahead and cut your trim pieces and start this into the glue process as well. I want to see what this block does before I start cutting the trim pieces. You know, because I don't want to build the trim pieces into it and it turn to garbage. It shouldn't. Actually dry enough to start the second coat, because we really want it to look like this. See how there's like no tacky to it. I know the can says wait like 15 to 20 minutes, but like it's so thin, it's not going to get any drier, you know? Alright, there's that second one on there. Let me pick up the pink pieces real quick so they don't get stuck. Alright, so these are about ready to go together. And same thing as before, just make sure you keep a little bit of overlap. Don't get in a rush. These are straight, so you can literally just stick them down to the table and push. One more glue up, because this will start to get us to these weird joints, so you can kind of see how that happens. Another thing that helps when you're doing these is as you get these pieces in there or glued together, sometimes it's in your best interest to cut off the trims or the inlays, like cut them even. Like this one. This one's ridiculous. It's sticking in my fingers. See if that helps out any. No. It doesn't help it at all. That is so freaking weird. This is what I mean. I don't have all the answers because I don't even understand why that happened. Why that is so dang distorted. But that's alright. Because if we lined it back up where it's supposed to be, this is what we got. See how that line is just... Because we also have that piece that's lining up too across that side. I don't know if you guys can really see that. That one's fine. It appears to be. It's always hard to do it whenever it goes like right through it because you can't tell. But if we line that up exactly where that's supposed to be, everything else should be fine. So, and squaring up that block in particular, that still leaves me 1.5 inches to cut that, so it's fine. That's why I'm not really too concerned about it. Curious, but not too concerned. So I'm going to lay these two pieces back out again. So we'll do the second glue up, which is lining those funky little boogery joints up, bringing in our other color. The next video after this one, which is next week, will be how we trim the blocks up to get them square, to turn them, because we need to bore center, and that's where a lot of people have a lot of problems, is boring center and keeping it true, and the actual steps to turning it down. But boring center will go into the tools I use and all that stuff, and I'll start with, like I always do when I'm teaching something, here's what I tried to do in the past, here's where I failed at it, here's what I upgraded to. The lining up the joints, that's also part of this one, is going to be in any grip that we are cutting apart and putting multiple colors back into it. The joints are what makes or breaks it. But even my joints, they're not perfect. There's some that are slightly off. I'm working towards that skill level. So yes, you can absolutely look at some of the grips that I have and dissect them and go, well, they're not perfect. No, they're not. I'm learning, just like everybody else is. Alright, second coat going on. Another thing, it dries quicker when you don't oversaturate it too. You really just want thin coats. You don't want like a massive thick coat on it. It's not going to make it stick any better, I promise. Second coat on. Woo! We are basically at a point where I'm just going to be like, yeah, we're good. For instance, see, there's still some shiny on it, but it's fine. It's fine. So this is the one that really take your time on, because this is the one that's really, really off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to match up the glue joint on this side, but not lay it down. So see, there's still a gap. It's not touching anything yet. And I want to twist this side so that those glue joints match up for both of them. So now we've got that. Part of the problem is this is one of those pieces of that trim that kind of like laid down on itself and stuck itself to the block. So it's a wee bit blind when you go to do that, but we'll hope for the best. call it a day. The rest of these, not too complicated, because the only place that we have a joint is actually down here at the bottom. This whole point going through here, that corner needs to match up. But we need to keep that block as symmetrical as we can keep it. And that should be okay. Once again, that's another blind cut because we've got, or another blind lay-in because we've got all that. I don't know if y'all can see it, but there's a piece of green running in there. It's stuck now. We'll call it a day. Not necessarily go from the top and roll it in, like, make sure it's square. We want to make sure those joints are matching up the way they're supposed to be. And then sort out the rest of it. Ah! Crap, that stuck it. Here's what it is. That one's going to be there now. Oh well. I think it's going to be okay. It's got two pieces coming in on each other. We'll see what happens. This one's a lot easier because it behaved the way it was supposed to. And this is this is how it should go, is this block. Because you literally can just stick it on there, push it in on itself, and it stayed pretty much straight. That one decided to be the booger. A great example of what can happen and what should happen. He was just trying to help me teach, that's all, right? This one. And the last little piece that we're going to put together, we're going to line it up. The only other one that's going to be a booger is going to be this one to get it to line up. But like I said, even squaring this block up because I left it larger, we'll end up with something that looks kind of like, so you see how this block is moving all over the place? My joints are great, but even at its most funky part, like I still got plenty of room to cut it down because it's still almost 2 inches wide there. And if I cut through here at its skinniest part, I don't know if y'all can see that or not, but it's like almost 2 inches wide there, so it's fine. Same thing on that side. Still got 2 inches to play with. So even if I have to cut any material off of this, even though it's distorted as hell, we're going to be fine. Same thing with this one. To get that bottom piece to line up, we have to shift the block. Because if we put it together square, see what happens to it? That joint gets funky. We don't want a funky joint. We want that joint to look like it just seamlessly appeared in and out right there. So we shifted the block a little bit. That one didn't line up too bad either, so. Alright, we're back with the final glue up, which is just 3 pieces needing to get glued together. What I'm going to do first is cut off the extra, just so that I can see a little bit better as I go to line this up. And that one's glued in, so that's fine. This is really just to help kind of eyeball where those joints are. So now we're going to do our final gluing, make sure everything's facing the side it needs to be on, which is this way. So that's up, this is up, this stays sideways. Once again, just 2 coats on everything. We'll let that dry. So now that that coat's dried, we're putting the second coat on, and we are about ready to stick this block completely together. I'll let that second coat dry, and then we can start piecing it back together. Alright, so now that the glue has completely dried, we are putting this block together, and we are going to be lining up joints. This one has a joint on this side that's visible, so I want to start with that side, which does shift the block, but like I said, it's fine. I'd rather the joint be good than the block look good. And we're going to be lining up these two. Equal pressure on these things makes or breaks the joint, so make sure you really like squeeze them. So you see we have a lot of distortion. Like I said, it's fine. We're going to cut that down and trim it on the next video. So this one, this side again, the swirl at the bottom is the one I want to make sure that the joint's lined up with, which shifts that block massively. We're going to see if this one works or not. Not having taken out all the extra material, we should be okay. It's just going to be a slight pain to square it up, but it'll be alright. And I can see that probably one of these lines is not going to work, but we'll see. Because as that got glued in, it looks like a distortion right there. The other one is here, where that one runs into that one. But we really won't know until we really get it turned down and squared up tomorrow. But here's our final blocks. They look like a hot mess right now. And in the next video, we will be squaring these up and boring center and turning them and seeing what they turn into.